Hi all, today we are going to see about React hooks. Okay, so what are React hooks? So you very well know that components in React, we can write components in React as a class or as a function. And class components in React have some benefits, like it can have its own state, and it can also access the lifecycle methods like did mount, likewise. Okay, component did mount, will unmount, will maybe there are some other methods as well. So which it can make use of the class component. But when you take a function component, they can't use a state, and they can't access the lifecycle methods. So they have to go back to the class methods for any other. If you want to maintain the state, they have to rely on the class components. So this can be avoided from by using React hooks. So these React hooks are available from 16.8. Okay, version 16.8. So let's understand React hook with a simple project. I will just run through the project so we can start with the next video. As a continuation, we will see that. Let me explain the video. I have it here. So what this project is already created by me in my. If you have follow my React hooks tutorial, you would have already seen how to develop this project. So this project is a continuation, the project which was already done in my React tutorial session. Okay, so I will also be adding the GitHub of that React session, React project in this video, so that you can also have a look. Okay, what this video does is, it is simple video. So what this video has is, it has a login page where we will have a username and password. Once the person logs in, he will be able to see this home page. Okay, where we display the list of employees from a node server, and this also has a search. Okay, which we have to implement the for searching the employees. They also have a search tab which filters this employee list. So we will be trying to understand this React hooks by using this React search functional component. This is a class component which displays the list of employees, is a class component, and this particular search is a functional component. We will be trying to understand our complete React hooks with this simple functional component. So let me also show you in code how it looks. Okay. So this is my search. This is my class component which displays the list of employees. Okay. And this also has a class component, functional component, which is the search component. You can see it here. This is my functional component. Okay, which just right now displays the displays this enter name to filter and displays this value, right? And this value you are not able to edit because right now if you want to edit, okay, you have to give this value to the class component and maintain via the state. Okay, manage via state. So let us understand in the search component how to make this editable. Okay, using the React hooks by managing the state via the functional component, search component, and we will also be trying to understand all this React hooks. So we will be seeing all this React hooks by means of this search component. This is my agenda. Let us proceed with useState next. So we will try to understand useState React hook. This is for bringing the state management, what we use in this class component, right? useState. We use setState to set the state, and the state is already available in a class component. But the state can be made available in a functional component by making use of useState React hook. So let's try to understand. This is what useState is used for. It is for accessing state, bringing state to functional component. We can use useState React hook. So let's move on to the project. Okay, this is our project which we have here. Let's create a use state. Right now, as I showed you in the project description, you would have seen. So this is our project, how it is. Now what shall we do is, we will for setting the whatever the user enters, right, we will put it into the state, and we will access that state. Whatever he writes, we will put it into a state, and we will access the state. Whatever is put in state, we will try to take out from that state and display it in the input element, in this input element. Okay, so let me for the first step will be to use the state, right? So let me use the state. For that, let me do constant use state. Okay, use state. Okay, use state, and what should be the state? See, there is a big difference between the class, the using the state in the class component and the functional component using use state. Here you can do only like this. You should have it as an object here in a class component. But in this case, it need not be an object. It can be even for it can be any value. You can start the state with a boolean or empty value, anything. It need not be an object. So I am creating a state only for this input element, right? So the what it will return is, you see what it will return is the use state. So the use state is already auto imported, so I need not do that. So what it returns is, it will return two values, the use state. The first one value is the for retrieving the state. It can be used for retrieving the state. Second value it returns is for setting the state. Okay, so I can have it like uh, filter value. That is what the filter value, and this is a function set filter value, which I will be using for setting the filter value. Okay, just understand, the use state will return two things, and I'm using a destructuring, array destructuring, to get it in these two values. The first one value will be var, which will be for retrieving the state, using the state. Next one for setting the state. Okay, so here when I want to use these two values, the value will be displaying what is retrieved from the state, right? Because I want to see what the user types. So I can put here, and on the on change event of this input element, I will call the set filter value for setting the state. Okay, on change. I'm just using JSX. It is a function. Hope you understand why I'm using this curly braces, flower braces, just because I'm going to write TypeScript inside JSX. If you don't understand, I would recommend you to see my previous videos to understand this. So I will have a function here, okay, and this will get a event, that is the uh, change event. I'm getting it in this event, and I will use this, and I will call set filter value because I am setting the value. Okay, and here I need to set whatever the user types, which will be available in event.target.value. Fine. So in value, I'm just retrieving the state, whatever the state is available right now. At first it will be empty. Once in set filter value, you are able to enter the value. Once the user enters the value, that value that state will be retrieved in this value and shown to the user in the input element. So let's see now whether it is changing for us. Okay. Okay. Sorry. I made a mistake. It should be inside input element. I'm trying to write it back. Okay. So I have to write it here. Right. So the value we are changing for the input element. Right. So here you have to type on change. Type this, and I will be able to get this input element. So now let us check whether it is working for us. So now whenever I type, the state is getting set and I am able to see the state. If you remember before, we are not able to edit this value. Now we have brought in the state using useState. Now whenever I change the state, right, whenever any user changes this input element, the state is getting changed, and the changed value in the state we are able to retrieve using this filter value. Okay. Hope this use state is clear for you. So next, now let's move on to the next state, that is the use effect. So next, React hook is use effect. What is use effect? Why we need that use effect? If you take, already knew that a class component in React can access these lifecycle methods. What are the lifecycle methods? The lifecycle methods are nothing but all these are lifecycle methods. Component will mount, did mount, will receive props, should component update, did update, will unmount. So these lifecycle methods, these functionalities, we can call inside, make use of this functionality from a class component. But from a functional component, you can't use them, right? So bring these functionalities to a functional component, we basically use useEffect. useEffect helps you to use these functionalities in a functional component. Okay. So if you take these lifecycle methods, maybe I will put a separate video on this. Maybe I will also add a link for this. So the component will mount, if you take, I will just run through them. So component will mount will actually get called whenever the component is mounted, and did mount after mounting. And this component will receive props will get called whenever a new props is received by the component. And here using should component update, you can actually say whether a component should update or not. Maybe based on the props and the props and new state value, you can actually decide whether the a component should update, that is re-render or not. This by making use of this should component update, you can sorry, you can all you can stop the re-render from happening in React. And this component did update will get called after the React component updates. And the component will unmount will get called when the unmounting happens for that React component. So if I want to use these functionalities, maybe I want to do something after a update, or I want a function to not get called when the update is called. Okay, maybe I want to call a function based on certain values, something. So all this functionalities, if I want to make use of it in a functional component, you need useEffect. The useEffect, if you think, it is actually component did mount, did update, and component will unmount combined. Okay, so let's understand this with a simple example now. So let me go to my project, which is already present. So here And what else I will do is this app.js, right? This app.js is actually using Axios and getting the employees from the server. Now let me comment this code, and this component will mount functionality. I want to bring it to the search.js. So let me add this functionality to my functional component now. So let me use effect. I will just put use effect, and I will this is auto imported from React. Okay, and here the first one will be the function call. What it will be taken as a function call. Okay, so in this I will put the code for Axios. Maybe whatever I commented, right? Maybe that didn't get copied. So whatever I commented here, I will copy and paste it here because I want to do that functionality from search. Okay, and I will uncomment it. Okay, I don't have this .set state. I will remove this. And also the Axios has to be imported in a class component, right? Functional component, right? So I can import this. I can use the same import whatever I did here. Okay, and I've did the import now. So for each use effect, okay. Now what I have done is I put this Axios call inside use effect. Now by default, right, use effect what will happen is whatever you put inside the use effect, right, will get called by default for every render. Whenever the search gets called, this Axios, whenever the re-render happens, this will happen. This call will happen. I can also show you in code. Maybe we will go to here. So whenever we will open the network tab. So whenever we change the state, right? So what will happen? The re-render of the search component will happen. So you can see whenever this re-render happens, this is getting called, right? And the other thing, hope this is saved. I have not saved it. Only we are seeing the values there. Okay. So whenever this value changes, the state gets changed and the re-render of the search component happens. So we are able to see this get employees. Get employees call. Okay. This is what happens with default with use effect. Okay, for every render cycle, this whatever you put inside use effect will happen. Okay, but there is also another functionality. You can also add dependency in use effect. Okay, if you add a dependency in use effect, it means this function will get called only when the dependency changes. When you don't give any dependency, it will act like component did mount. So it will get called only once. Okay. So now right now I have not put any dependency here. So it will get called only once when the mounting happens. So it will, as I told you, it will work as component did mount. So only once in the life cycle of this search component. Okay, you can see it here. Even if I change the state, it will never get called. It will get called only once. See, it get called. After that, even if I change the state, even the re-render happens, the use effect will never get called. Okay. and here you can put any dependency. Here I can put this dependency, right now I will put this dependency filter value, because whenever the filter value changes, I want to give a new value to the employees, because we are trying to filter with employees, right? We will give a new value with the to the server. We are supposed to give a new value to the server so that this gets re-rendered. So the correct dependency here will be filter value. If I give it like this, you can see it here. So whenever the filter value changes, it will re-render. This function will get called, and the RCS will go to call the server. This function will be actually getting called. Okay, and we can also send this employees to the app.js so that we are able to see that here in this screen. Okay, for sending this value there, you can actually make use of props. We are also already receiving a props. We have to add something here when wherever the search is happening. We already have added something called on get employees. Okay, so on get employees, you need to populate the values so that this search, whenever the employees is called from the search, it will be this app.js will be able to set state. Whatever is received from the search component, it will actually change the state so that employees will be able to be visible in this class component, because we will be iterating over this search component. If you see here, just search for employees, right, over there. So here we actually iterate over the employees, so we will be able to employees whenever I receive the data. So I have to pass the data from here whenever I receive it from the server. So on the props, I need to call this thing uh, on get employees, right? I will call and pass the employees there. This is actually a function. So let me send the employees dot data. That's where I receive the value, right? So now let's see whether now we are able to see the data. So this is about use effect. So use effect is for, as I told you, it is for bringing the lifecycle methods to a functional component. So it has a way that you can send, you can also pass in dependencies. So like should component update, you are able to also stop the render, stop the function which you have written inside from getting called by making use of this dependency. So it is comparable to should component update. Okay, it is comparable to that. And other thing we saw is when you don't give a, when you give an empty dependency here, it is similar to component did mount. So it will get called only once. Okay, so this is about use effect. Okay, we will so let's proceed with useRef in the next coming session. Okay. So the next React hook is useReducer. useReducer, if you take, it is an alternative to useState. Okay. If you have heard already knew about Redux store and all, you would have heard of about actions and reducer. So in case of useReducer, we will be using this React hook to send actions, okay, for dispatching actions, and we will be subscribing to the, it is like having your Redux store in your functional component, and using use reducer hook, you will be either dispatching action, and you will be also taking the recent state from the reducer, from the redux store, which is deployed in your functional component. So just understand that by making use of useReducer, you are having a redux store in your functional component, and by what useReducer returns, you can access the recent state, and it can also send actions to the redux store using useReducer. So let's understand this with a simple project. So this is the project I already have, right? So what we will try to accomplish in this is, we can see this project here. Okay, in this whenever I type, right, whenever I go to the server, right, I want to have a that's loading indicator. I want that to be accomplished. For that, let us try to use reducer. Okay, so let me first import use reducer. So I will do it automatically. So use reducer will be automatically imported now. You can see that. So the use reducer, right, what it takes as the first input is, as we know in Redux store, it needs a reducer, right? So it here we have to create a reducer kind of store here. So the yeah, sorry, a store for managing all the HTTP states, like loading state, pending state, completed state. So let me create a store, as we used to create a reducer store in a Redux. Okay. So I will name it as HTTP reducer. So it is a function. So what it takes is, the first will be the initial state, okay, and the next will be actions, based on which we will change the state. Okay. So let me have a switch where I will pass actions.type. So the first case is the HTTP status, maybe when we send the request, that is the pending state. So the pending state will have what, maybe in the pending state you can have a state called loading. Whenever we send a request, it should be loading, and I have no errors in this state. Right? Leave it. So the next state is completed state, right? So once it is complete, right, can return loading false and error is empty. And the next state is error state, when the server gets any error, right? So here I can say return loading false, and I can, whatever the error is sent, I can display it here. right? So I can use actions dot payload, whatever to make use of the error it is sent. Okay. Now I have created a store, kind of store. Okay, I can give this store as an input to the useReducer, and the second input is the initial value. So the initial value will be loading, maybe loading false, and error is empty, right? Maybe I can keep empty. And what the useReducer returns is as useState, right? This returns the first one will be the state. Maybe I can name it states. Here, all the states, recent states will be written, and the next is the dispatch function, using which you can call the actions. Okay, so let me now I have created the dispatch and all those. Now in the use effect, I can say dispatch. I can pass this action. The action will be type pending, right? When I'm going to about to call the server, it should be rotating, right? So I can give this state. I will ask it to return this, the reducer to return this state, type pending. Okay. When it has given the value, when the server has completed the request, I can give the value as dispatch type completed. Right? And the next state for error state, what I need to do is I can handle the promise for the error case. Maybe whenever the error comes from the server, whatever the error comes, I will pass this error to the action. So it is type error, okay, and the payload is the error what was sent from the server. So it will be error dot message. Okay. So the now I need to now I have set all the states. Okay. So whenever it is goes for the server, goes to the server, it will show loading true. Whenever it is completed, it will be loading false. So making use of the state, I need to show the loading indicator now. For that, I already created a UI. I already have a UI, a loading indicator, which will be able to show the loading, that loading rotating ring. Okay. So let me load this loading indicator only when the loading state is true. Okay. So let me first I will display the loading thing in the maybe below this card. Okay, so it should be loading indicator, right? So I have imported that loading indicator. I think not yet imported, so I can import it. Imported. So the automatic loading is not working, so I can import it like this from UI, from dot slash UI and loading indicator. Right? So I think it is not a default thing. So I have used, so it is a default, no need to say like this. the default info export, so I can directly use. I want to show this loading indicator when the loading state is true, right? For that I can make use of this. I will how to use the state. You can use the HTTP states for that. Okay. Only when the HTTP states dot loading is true, I need to show this states. So I will use this and only when the HTTP states dot loading is true, I will be showing this loading indicator. So I put it inside flower braces because this is JavaScript. Okay. Now let's see whether we are able to see that. You can see, right? Whenever we are going for that, we are able to see that rotating thing, right? Maybe I have not added this. See, the use effect I have left like this. Just whenever I type something there, I want to go to the server. So I will add a dependency here as filter value. So it will go to the server whenever somebody changes this filter value state. So if you have seen my use state video, you will understand this. So whenever this state is changed, whenever the user types anything to this self filter value is typed, change self filter value will change this filter value state. So whenever this filter value is changed, this thing will get executed. So you will now, if you go and see, whenever somebody types it, you can see this loading indicator. So now we have implemented this loading indicator by using useReducer. Hope this is clear. Now let's move on to the next React hook. We will see about useRef. So the useRef, if you see this React hook, it is for taking the reference from any DOM element. Maybe if you want to know the current value in that, you can use useRef to get a reference to that DOM element. So this is, if you know Angular, it is comparable to the template reference, what we have in Angular. So let's understand this. I think this will be better understood with the example. So let's go to a project where we'll see an example. For making you understand on this useRef, I just want to also make you understand. We will try to understand useRef by because we have a problem here. If you see, go to the project, you will see that for every calls, right? For whatever you type, yeah, value is going to the. So as I told you, we have a problem here. Whenever you type, right, for every type, it goes, the call goes to the server because how we have programmed it is for because for every state changes, this read render will happen. Whenever the user types anything on the input box, the state will change and the re-render will happen. And in the use effect, what we have mentioned is we have mentioned the dependency as filter value. So whenever the user enters any new value, this filter value will change and this function is getting called. Maybe we can actually change this behavior. Maybe we want to send a request to the server only when the user stop typing the, because once only when he stop typing on the filter, search filter, we have to go to the server. We should not go before that. For bringing that feature, let me first introduce set timeout. First, we will try to delay our request to the server. So let me have a set timeout. Inside that, I will add a functionality so that I delay the call to the server. Every call to the server by 1000 milliseconds. Okay, maybe I will add 1000 milliseconds here. Okay, by this way, what it will happen is even now all the requests will happen, but we are just delaying the request to the server. Okay, you can also see that in my project. If you clear it out, can see now also so many calls goes, but it goes after 1000 milliseconds because we have given a set timeout. Now we have to do one more change, that this set timeout, this Axios call should go only when the value and the states are both same, because the state, whatever the state, right, this filter value will be what it when the set timeout is there. Okay, so for illustrating this, let me use useRef. I will add a reference to the input element. Okay, whatever you mention it here is a initial value for this input element, and it will give you a reference. Okay, it should be constant, and I will add this reference. I want a reference to the input element, so let me add a ref here, and I will give the reference as a input. Maybe if you think it is kind of confusing, you can make it ref1, and you can give it this here as an input inside, since it is a JavaScript. Okay, now I have added a reference to this input element. Now I can make use of the element by using refer.target.current value. So for doing this thing, like I want to do this call only when the user has stopped typing. So I will add a if here, and here I will type filter value. This call should go only when the filter value is equal to the ref1 dot target dot current value. I think it is ref1 dot current value. Current ref1 dot current dot value. So you value here. Yes. I will put the set timer inside the call inside this. Okay. I think it ends here. So I have made sure that this call only goes when the filter value and this ref1's value both are same, because the filter, this will be the latest value whatever the user types, but this value, the filter value, will be when the set timeout got created, because this will get executed only after 1000 milliseconds, right? I'm just repeating it. This will be the latest value what the user type, and this will filter value will be when the set timeout got created, that value it will refer to. So only when the state value and the current value both are same, I want to go to the server. Okay, I've just included this issue using useRef, reference one dot current dot value. Now if you go and see in our example, we should not be seeing so many calls going. Okay, let me do it. See, only one call goes. It is not like that, right? Now you see, we have just got 3. Only when you stop typing, it is going. So this is working. This is working because the filter value does not have the latest value, because this filter value will refer to the state. Okay, and this value will be what when created when the set timeout is created. So we are able to accomplish this. Okay, hope you understood. So the basically useRef here we are using here for getting the reference for getting the current value from this input element. Okay. Thank you guys. Let's move on to the next hook.
So now we are going to see about useMemo. React hook useMemo. So this React hook actually returns a memoized value. So this React hook can be used for doing any expensive operation. Okay, maybe you are trying to, as a simple example, if you are trying to sum up two values. Okay, this function should be called. This adding function should be called only when the dependency change, right? The two values change, which you are going to sum up. There is no use in calling the function again when these two values does not change, right? So in that case, useMemo will be very apt for that. That is, you want to do some addition and based on two values, and you want to call this function only when these two values change. So in a simple case, maybe this can also be applied for a very complex or expensive operation. Okay, you understand this? So if when you put this function inside useMemo, this function will not be called until these dependencies change. Only when the dependencies change, this function will be called. Else, the whatever value got returned will be used. Same value will be returned from that useMemo. Rather than calling the function and getting the value from that, the memoized value, the previously returned value will be returned from that. That is about useMemo. Let us understand useMemo with the example now. So this is my application which I have been using. So let me add, maybe this is how it is right now. Okay. Let me add two inputs. Let me do that sum operation and show you. For doing the sum operation, let me add two inputs now. And I want to bring it down, right? So I'll add a div here. This is it, and I will name it. I don't want a reference here. And the filter value, and I will add two other states for these value 1 and value 2, which I'm going to sum using use. Okay, this can be a value 1 and it is set value 1. This is value 2 and it is set value 2. And let this be the initial state be 0. And this value 1 I will give it to these inputs. Okay, let this input initial value be value 1, and here I will say set value 1. Okay, Now I have added two inputs for value 1 and value 2. Let me now add a function. Okay, a simple function for adding these two numbers. Okay, let it be now constant sum function. This is sum function which adds two numbers. So return sum 1 and value 1 and value 2. Okay, and this sum function you can just call it here. Maybe you can have a label here. I label sum, and you put the you call the sum function here. Sum. Okay. So right now I have not used useMemo. Let's see how it happens. So I have just written a simple function which adds two numbers, value 1 and value 2. Go to our application. So all are 0, correct, right? It's just one here, 2. So these two are strings, that's why you are getting like say concatenation, right? Maybe we can pass in the integer integer input value try to change it to value now, integer basically. Find that I think we don't need the integer, just try it now. See whether it works for us. So it is 0 now. If we put 1 here, 2. So now it came as 3, right? Now I will also put a console log here so that we can know that whether it is going inside the we go here. So if you see now, okay, we go to the console here. So if you type here, it is going inside. That I understand, right? Yeah, because the state is getting changed, the function values are getting changed, so it makes sense to go inside. But even this actually happens because whenever you type something, the state changes and re-render happens. But even when the re-render happens for this filter, right, you can see that it is going inside. You see here, right? Whenever anyone types on the filter, and the state change for the filter value also, this function is getting called, which is not needed, right? I don't want to call this function when the filter value changes because this function has no dependency on this filter value. It is not summing anything on the filter. So to avoid this, okay, unnecessary going inside, calling this function unnecessary, we can use useMemo, which where we have will have an option that this function should be called only when the dependency change, else you return the old uh, return value, that is the old memorized value. Can use memo here, use memo, and we will give this function as a first parameter. Okay, and, we have to give dependency here. Here the dependency is value 1 and value 2, and I can put this. Now I have put the function inside use memo, and we can put it in the same because we are using some function here down. So here no need to call, just use the function itself or use memo. Okay, that's it. Now let us see, even when the filter value changes, this function should not get called, but instead the old sum should get returned. Whenever I call this sum function, the old sum should get returned. Okay. So use memo is not defined at the same. So let me add that use memo also. Import it from React. So now it's working. Let us see now. Okay, let me clear it off. Now one, it is going inside. It is giving the correct value. I understand it. It has to go inside, right? Because we have set the dependencies and value 1 and 2. Even if I type here, you see, it is never going inside. Instead, it is returning the old sum 3 only. You understand? Even though now the sum calls, but since it is inside use memo, it just returns the old value, old memorized value, because the value 1 and value 2 did not change. Okay, you understood? So this is about use memo. Okay, let's proceed to the next React hook. So our next React hook is use callback. Okay, whenever you have a function, right? Whenever the re-render happens, the new object for the function is created. Okay, by default, then you have a function called something, and whenever the re-render happens, uh, basically a new object of that function is created, because you know that function is also a function object. But when you put this function inside use callback, the new object is created only when the dependency inside the use callback changes. Else the new old object will always be used. So that's why we say that use callback will return a memoized callback. Okay. Let me explain you with example. Let me go to our function, to our project. So this is our project. Okay. I will write a function here. Maybe a constant something callback function. Okay. And I will have a function here. Okay. Something like this. And I will put in just a console log just to know that whether this function is getting called. Okay. Maybe I will say callback function call. Okay. Now by default, right, I can show you. Let me call this callback function here. will put a div here, and I will call this callback function. I'm just calling this callback function. Okay. Okay, this will get called anyway to find out whether the object is same or different. We can add this callback function as a dependency here. Okay, so so as I told you, this callback functions object will be different in every re-render. So what will happen here is we have added as a dependency to useMemo. If you don't know about useMemo, I will recommend you to see the previous session on useMemo. Previous session on that. So the useMemo, right? This function will get called whenever the callback function will change, right? So in every render, it will call because this callback function object is different every time, right? This callback function object is different every time. So every re-render, this will get called. Now you can see this. I will show you. Let me go to a function. So in every re-render, if I change anything on filter one also, you see now it is getting called for everything. For every re-render, it is called because the callback function is different for every re-render. Because by default, the callback function gets created by React for every render. Okay, but we can change this by means of use callback. Though I'm not changing value 1 and value 2, since the callback function is getting this object is getting changed for every render, we are seeing this going inside call for every re-render. If I take this callback function, right, you will see that it is not getting called. Okay, I will put this. You see, now the going inside is not coming, right? You see, going inside is not coming because I have not set a dependency for callback function. Let me add a dependency. If you do it as we saw, for every re-render, this will happen because this callback function is a new object for every re-render. But we can change this behavior by using use callback and say that you don't create a new object for every re-render and you change it. You can actually put this inside callback function, right? The same thing, constant callback function. And you say I don't have any other dependency. I just want a one function object. Don't change the function object for every re-render. Okay. You give it like this. Now we will see what happens. Now if you go and see, okay, I will clear it off. Now it changes for this. This I'm getting going inside is calling for now changing value 1 and value 2. That's fine. It's correct. But whether when I change something here, whether it is getting called, no, it is never getting called because we have put the function inside use callback. So only one single function object is created and the same function object is retained for the entire re-render cycles of the search component. Okay. But if I put any value here, right, It means that I'm saying that you change the callback function. If I maybe this if I put filter value here, right? I'm saying whenever the filter value changes, you create a new object of the callback. So now you see, you will see the going inside every time. Whenever you see going inside coming, because I have set a dependency that whenever the filter value inside filter value changes, you create a new function object. So whenever a new function object whenever a new function object is created, this sum function will be called. Okay, and we will be able to see the value here. They're going inside here, and the value 1 and value 2. Okay, the sum and callback function I have actually called here. Sum and callback function. Okay, hope it is clear. Thank you. Have a nice day.
So we will be start seeing about context API in React, and after understanding context API, we will use context React for retrieving the value from use context. So the context API is like sharing the values across various components, maybe function or class. You can whatever you create in context, it can be easily shared rather than sending via props. Without context, what we used to do, we used to send from what receives the props. Maybe inside app I have another component called search, and inside search I have another component called user dashboard. If I want to pass a username to the user dashboard without context, we need to send it from app, which receives the value what the user enters from login component, and from from app component I have to send it to search. From search I have to send it to user dashboard. It is this is called as prop drilling. So with context API is like a if you know Redux store, it is like a centralized store. So whatever you put it in context, you can take it from any component. You can share it across any component, provided that component, the parent component, is inside the provider for that context. This is the only rule, that parent component should be inside the provider. It should be encompassed, or it should be put inside the provider of that context. Okay, we will be seeing that with the example. Now for creating the context, what we need to do, let's understand with a simple example. So for let's go to our project. For creating the context, the first step will be to create a folder. Maybe this is not mandatory, but I will create a folder. Okay, let me have a folder here. I will name it context folder. Okay, and inside this context folder, let me have a because using this, my requirement is to show the username. Like you would have seen many application, right? I need to show this hello, whoever is logged in, right? That username, I will I should create a component for that user, maybe a dashboard component which shows the user which has logged in to this application. So I will have this user dashboard component inside this search component. Okay, let me the first step will be to create a context for this requirement. For fulfilling this requirement, since I want to show the username, I will create named as user context. I will name it as usercontext.js. So in this, first I need to create a content, then only the other component can share, right? So for creating the context, I will make use of create context in React. So the create context, right? So let me auto import this create context for creating the context. Okay. So in this context, we have to mention the values we want to make it available in the context. Here I want to make available the username, okay, and I also want to make available set username, because using this only this value only, this function only, I'm going to change the username. Okay, so I will also make available this one. Okay, this is a, I will tell it to the context, I will mention that it is a simple function name. Okay, now let it have it in user context. Let me create it like user context, and let me export it as a default user context. Okay, now I have set the context. Now for setting this, you also need the logic, right? If you take a reduce tool in the reducer, we would have written the logic for giving the recent state, right? So whenever somebody does the set username, you have to write the logic for setting this username state, right? You understand? Whenever somebody sets this set username, you also need to write the logic for changing this username value. So you have to also, for every context, you also need a provider who provides the logic for that context. Okay, so let me also write the provider here. Maybe I will name it user provider. So inside this only, you need to encompass, as I mentioned earlier, any parent component where for all the child components this context will be available. Okay, so it is a function. Okay, which will also receive a props. Okay, and as I told you, this has to return a provider. Okay, user context dot provider. Here it has to return a value. For every provider, you also need to send a value. Okay, here you put all the components which are inside this user provider. So you have to mention props dot children here. Now let me write the logic for this setting the username. So let me make use of useState. I hope you understand what is useState. If you don't know useState, you can refer to my previous videos on that. Okay, and let me have this username as empty first, and let me use this useState for setting the username and set username. Okay, so user value, and maybe I will. So as you know, useState will give you to return you two things. First one is the value, and second one for the value from the state, and the second parameter is for setting the state. Okay, so let me have this, and I will give these two values, and these two values will be the logic. I am just using the useState as a logic for setting the username. Okay, for now you have to say for username what the context needs to use. For username, you use the user value which is returned from useState. And for this set username function, I am saying you use the set user which is returned by useState. Okay, so actually these, it is supposed to return an object. This also, okay. Now this is how we have to write the function. Now using provider, I provide the logic for this username and set username. For username, I have told it use the user value which is set by written by useState, and for set username you use set user. So whenever anyone calls, they import the context and call username, they will be able to access the state, the user state, the state which is written by useState. And whenever anyone calls set user, they will be able to call this set user, and they will change the state in the context, and user value will be the latest value from that state. Okay, to reiterate, set user, when anyone calls set username, they will be changing the state in the context, and whenever anyone fetches the user value username, they will be fetching the recent value from the state. Okay, and we will also export this provider. Maybe we can directly export it here. Export constant user provider. Okay, now our requirement is to show the user hello user in a separate component inside search, right? So let me first, for the doing that, I first need to make this context available throughout the app search and user dashboard. So let me import this user provider. So the user provider is not a default export from dot slash, it is inside context, and here it is inside user context. Okay. Now to make this context available throughout my application, I will put this app component inside my user provider. So this app should go inside user provider. So whatever is children of app will also be able to access this context. Okay. So this is the one of the reason why, it is a reason why we put it as props.children. So your app will come inside this user context.provider. Okay. Now first let us set the state, set this context. So the login will only be able to set the state, set this context. So let me go to the login. For using this context, you need to import useContext. Okay. So let me import useContext. And the input, the parameter to this will be the user context. Okay. Which you can, which got imported, auto imported. You can see this. And let this be. Now I need those two, right? Whatever the context has, it has username and set username. I want both for login because I will be able to set the username and set username. You have to put this, not this. You have to understand. Only these are exposed from the context. Okay. Now I've got these two from the context. Now I can directly use that. So instead of using what the app sent me the username, I will just directly use the username here. Okay. And for setting the username, I will directly set it in the context. I can write a method. So here I will get an event, right? Here I will set the username. Second, So here let me use set username and set the username. So the value what the unit type will be available even dot target dot value. Okay. Now we have changed the state in the which is available in the context. Okay. So now to make this state available in my app, then only I can log in using this. Right now we are using the state which is available in this class component. Now I have removed, right? I have removed the user to be got from the context, right? Rather than from the local class state. So now I have to use the state which is available in the context. For a class component to use the state, you have to put context type. So let this should be user context. So when you for a class component to access the context, you have to give something like this: static context type equal to user context. Once you give this, you can make available the context when you do this dot context. So this will give you the context. So in this app.js, I just need the username. I don't want to set the username, right? So whatever is mentioned here, I can use that. Now I will change the logic so that this username I don't want, because I don't want to send the username from this state to the login, and this is also not needed because we are directly using the context logic for setting the username. And here I can just directly use, rather than taking from the state, I can directly use username equal to user, and I will change the state, right? And now I'm changing the accessing the context username rather than the class state. Okay. Now let's see whether it works. We are good, and it is giving me error. App.js. I think the user context is not. So let me should be user context. It is what it is. We can just copy it from here, and we can give this context. Okay. Now let's see whether it works. Okay, sorry. The context should also have a React thing, because this user provider is also a component. So you import React from React so that it is able to convert this JSX JavaScript. This is for JSX conversion. So let me now am I created this context outside? Hmm. issue we are getting. Wait, I will try to solve. So I think the app actually gets it directly. The related path is different. So now we are able to see that. So now let's see whether even the login works. So here, whenever I set the username, we are setting that username state in the context. Now let's see, it is user password. So now it is working fine. Now our next target, now the username state is available in the context. Now we need to do our next requirement, that is showing the user dashboard, showing hello user, whoever is logged in. So for that, the first step will be to create a functional component, right? And we create a functional component called the user dashboard. So this is first step is import React from whenever I create a component, and we have to create a constant, import constant user dashboard. Okay, maybe what it has to do, it has to just, we can return a div here which just displays, maybe you can have a label hello and the username, which has to be fetched from the context. For fetching from the context, we can use useContext, and you give the context, user context, right? And here in this component, I don't want to set the username. I just need the username from the context, the username state. So you can put, that's what I think we named it as username. Put it as username, and I will put just the username. Displaying the username, you can put the username here. Now this should show the username, and I will add this component in my search, and I will also mention it. I will create another card here so that it displays nicely, and inside this card let me create this the dashboard. I think I have not exported that. Exported. Maybe. Don't know why this user dashboard we have to import also, right? Import user dashboard. I have made it as a default dashboard from dot user dashboard. So this should, let's see whether it, so now I have also added it set card. So it is saying it's not defined. Can make it a constant, and can do it here. Export for user dashboard. Label is not defined. I think it is small. So let me log out and log in. Class. So now we are able to see that, right? Hello user. Now we have accomplished this using context API and using use context to retrieve the state from the context API. Hope you understood. Thank you. Have a nice day.